Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and today I wanted to do something a little out of the ordinary, mostly that things have gotten a little behind schedule courtesy of real life getting in the way. So we're going to do a Snek talk and something of a follow-up to my Lore of the World of Monster Rancher video. Let me lead with, Monster Rancher 4 is not cancelled, I haven't forgotten about it, it's coming back soon. But between real life being crazy and the fact that I'm raising a new generation of E-ranked monsters from the very beginning again, it's going to take a bit of time. I will, however, tell you their names, which are Naomasa, Oberon, and Shinron, and those contain some hints as to what kind of monsters you can expect. So, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher changes some of our perceptions of the world of Monster Rancher, mostly in very speculative ways, and I haven't beaten the game yet to my satisfaction, so I don't feel like I'm ready to do the full official review yet. What I will say is, it's good. If you like Monster Rancher, you'll enjoy it. Knowledge of Ultraman is mostly trivia and references, and while very cool, not necessary for your complete enjoyment of the game. That's my mini review before we kind of dive into the weeds here. That being said, those of you might already be familiar with Monster Rancher, may not be familiar with Ultraman. Ultra series, I guess you could say, really only started becoming widely available here in the West within the past couple of years. Back when I was in college, I lucked out and found a DVD box set of the original Ultraman 1966 television series, and those really weren't common. I just kind of lucked into it, and I happened to know who Ultraman was, because I am a huge nerd. The Ultra series, because it's more than just Ultraman, because before Ultraman there was Ultra Q, which you could kind of think of it as a Japanese version of the Twilight Zone. Ultraman wasn't that far removed from its source material either. What we learn in the very first series, he hails from the galaxy M78, and it's apparently very far from Earth, and the people there are these silver giants that are powered by light. Now the problem with that is Earth's atmosphere is very different than their homeworld, and they can only stay in their full-powered giant of light form for a limited amount of time, usually 3 minutes, though there are exceptions and ways around those limitations. Later series would also go on to explain that it's more than just a galaxy, it also is a planet, known as the Land of Light. There, the planet is overseen by Ultraman King, who is the, well, I can't really say oldest or most powerful, technically not true, because there's also weirdos like Ultraman Noah and Ultraman Legend kicking around. But, broadly speaking, the most powerful active Ultra at this time is Ultraman King. And the Ultras basically formed an intergalactic police force where they stop things from getting out of hand. They stop alien invaders from going to planets they shouldn't be going to or trying to conquer them. And they also stop Kaiju. Kaiju can have many different origins and different themes. Some Kaiju are just dinosaurs that didn't get the memo when the meteorite hit, and others still are mutations or creatures that have been sleeping in dormancy underneath the Earth's surface until something ended up disturbing them. Basically anything that could work as a Godzilla film excuse plot pretty much works for any given kaiju in Ultraman. In fact, the two share some lifeblood. The founder of Tsuburaya Productions, which makes Ultraman, was Eiji Tsuburaya, who was a special effects artist who worked on the original Godzilla film. That's really all you need to know to understand what a kaiju is. And except the rather strange premise on its face value that there are breeders who deliberately want to raise kaiju for fame and glory. Now, the intro sets in Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher, and we learn quite a lot. The first being that the kaiju seem to be limited to one specific island somehow. Somehow the ocean seems to prevent travel, but I really don't understand how. A lot of kaiju can swim, and many of them can fly. Maybe it's just that the Ultras wanted to limit how much damage they could cause, so this island could be fairly remote. That said, in the intro, we also learned that one of the Giants of Light, some Ultraman, it looks like Ultraman 66 in the cutscene, but it could really be any of them, is basically takes the same role that the god seen in Monster Rancher 2's intro sequence takes. Some Ultra locked the Kaiju into Saucer Stones. Now, how it exactly did that, who knows? A lot of the time in the Showa era, Ultraman just kind of got powers as the plot needed him to have them. It wasn't until a bit later that they got a bit more codified. And at the same time, it's possible that Ultraman was the deity seen in Monster Rancher 2. Now, this is a maybe, maybe not kind of proposition, but follow my logic here. Throughout the different Ultra series, we learned that Ultras have visited Earth for a very long time, some of which are revered as deities. That goes as far back as Ultraman 1966, a fairly early episode, actually discusses Ultraman Noah pretty much right out of the gate. Now, that may or may not be true. Again, this could still be allegorical. It could be one of those kind of cargo cult things where something was misunderstood from a distance. And Ultraman himself has said that they're not gods, they're just very powerful. They're exceptionally powerful alien beings who want to do the right thing and help out wherever they can. But it would not be difficult or a stretch at all for a human to see an Ultra, especially back in the days of mythology, and go, oh, well, that must be what a god looks like. It's a very understandable mistake to make. That itself actually lends itself to some interesting series of references found throughout Monster Rancher. In fact, Ultra-themed rare breeds have been around since Monster Rancher 2, though I feel in some ways this might actually muddy the water even further. Now, there was Ultral in Monster Rancher 2, who was from the Bajral family. In one of the advanced games, there's a pixie who was called, I believe, Ultima or something, who was definitely a nod to the Ultras. There's a Suezo in Monster Rancher Evo that's very much themed on Ultra 7, and there's probably a few I'm forgetting of even now. Now, this begs the question, like, are these monsters who somehow have Ultra DNA? Technically not impossible, especially if the questionable Netflix series isn't in any way canon. But Tsuburaya's general handling of canon is, it's all canon, even the parts that contradict each other. A thing to bear in mind is the Ultra meta-series universe is a multiverse, and it's a little unclear as to who can and can't go through the boundaries between the multiverse. We know for a fact that Ultraman Zero can, but it's one of those things where I know there's going to be a bunch of people jumping up and down, screaming that this is confirmation that Monster Rancher is a post-apocalyptic setting. I'm still not sure I buy that theory, to be perfectly honest. There are supposedly ancient artifacts, but none of the ancient artifacts actually resemble anything from our world, so I find that debatable at its best. Another theory is this could be some kind of convergent evolution. That's when two species happen to evolve very, very similar traits without actually being related to each other. This is where the everything is becoming crabs meme is coming from, because a lot of aquatic creatures are evolving crab-like traits and characteristics without being true crabs. This also could be seen in Ultraman Leo. Leo and his brother Astra are not true Ultras. They actually hail from a completely different planet somewhere in the constellation of Leo. Their species happen to evolve very, very similar traits, but they're not true Ultras. They didn't hail from the Land of Light or Galaxy M78. They were adopted into the Ultra family, but some of their powers work a little bit differently, and also the amount of time they can spend in Earth's atmosphere is a little bit shorter. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds, rather than the regular 3-minute timer. Now, all that being said, what we do know, in fact they tell you point blank in the game when you do the Mochi event, is that it's the shrine that make Kaiju huge, including monsters unlocked from regular discs like Suezo and Mochi. So it stands to reason that the reverse possibly holds true, that Kaiju disc stones unlocked in a regular monster shrine might create normal-sized, or quote-unquote normal-sized, Kaiju monsters. If that made no sense whatsoever. Now, there's no means to confirm this. It's just one of those things that there is a logical through line, and it could be that These disc stones of Kaiju may not even unlock in regular shrines. It may not be the right kind of shrine for it. But we do know for a fact that Suizo and Mochi can be treated as regular Kaiju in the confines of Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher. I say from a lore perspective, this is one of those things that probably is a glass coffin conundrum, remains to be seen. It's just one of those things that makes sense and also may or may not be true. Part of the reason I believe this is because Kaiju definitely share some genetic link with traditional monsters. During our Day 1 and Day 2 streams of the games, Gym Leader Ed and I found a plant Miklos and a Mochi Scavenger. And there's many more on top of that we haven't unlocked yet, so I believe there's something there. There is some familial relationship that allows some blending of Kaiju and monster traits. How these happened, who can say, but at the same time, there's definitely some kind of link. We haven't seen monsters with Kaiju subtypes, but at the same time, some monsters already have similar traits and body types to existing Kaiju, so I can't say it can be ruled out. This is one of those things where classification is really going to matter, at least in an in-universe perspective. The biggest monster on record is Zilla, which is still dwarfed by any Kaiju, even the smallest ones, but Mochi and Suizo still get treated as Kaiju when they're unlocked in the Kaiju Shrine. So in all likelihood, the simple in-universe explanation is just to divide them into different categories for the sake of the tournaments. Kaiju simply scale bigger and higher, and it's just not the same. Now, as I said, all of this is largely speculation, as Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is our first foray into the Ultra universe as far as Monster Rancher is concerned. I think there's something to be said for it, and I would love to see a follow-up. If there's an Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher 2, I'm there. I am definitely down, because I think this is a great opportunity for Monster Rancher to really get its footing. Ultraman in Japan is big. I don't mean that he's tall, that goes without saying. I mean Ultraman is one of the biggest pop culture phenomenons in Japanese culture as a whole. I would try to compare it to Japanese Superman, but in many ways Ultraman's more important to them than Superman is to Americans, or to the English-speaking world. Taking that into consideration, this could be a big opportunity for the Monster Rancher brand to get new life breathed into it. I would still like it to continue to build on this mythos that we've seen, to see some new ideas explored. I'm going to get more into this into the full review, but it played it a little safe in some regards while still building on the ideas that we've seen. Because I think, honestly, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher seems to be built on the skeleton of Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX. That's the impression that I get. And if that's the case, this can be so much more. And it's already a big step in the right direction. For all intents and purposes, as far as I'm concerned, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is Monster Rancher 6. It's in continuity with everything that we've seen. It is its own standalone game, and I think it's mechanically strong enough to stand up under that same level of scrutiny. So I hope we continue to see more of that get developed as time goes on. Now, that being said, are there a lot of mysteries? Yes. Yes. There are no raisable ultras in Ultra Kaiju. It's just a Kaiju. So exactly how that ties back to the Ultra-themed monsters is a huge question mark. And how the monsters and Kaiju coexist and how they seem to be genetically compatible on some level, that's another huge thing unto itself. And I'd love to see that avenue explored a lot more. So, this has been the Hipster Snek, and those are my thoughts on how this impacts the lore of the world of Monster Rancher, now that Ultraman is canon in Monster Rancher. Talk about words I never thought I'd have to say. It's like Koei Tecmo reached into my dreams on a personal level and was like, aha, we have to cross over with Ultraman. That's what this weird little Snek wants, and clearly that'll be a big hit. And it seems to have been. So, I hope for their continued success. Cross your hearts, cross your arms, and always, always, always do the right thing. That's what Ultraman would do. So this has been the Hipster Snek, and thank you for your patience as we go through this transitory phase full of changes and uncertainty, and I hope to continue to see you guys gathering here and enjoying this content as we can make it. And there's much more to come. Season 2 of the Tomodachi Bros podcast is coming soon. I swear it. It actually is. That should be soon. That's going to be a lot of fun. And there's more Let's Plays, there's more reviews, and there's going to be a lot more neat stuff as we move into the future. Thank you for joining me. Hipster Snek, out.